Hey everybody, happy Monday. Welcome back to my podcast. So, right off the bat, today's non-sponsor is going to be, of course, as always, the wonderful Sand Dune Customs by Josh Ledger. You can find him on Facebook or even his own website now. Go check him out. He's got masks, he's got tumblers, he's got stuff for you. So, the reason why I'm going to have him be, yet again, one of the non sponsors, again, he's not paying me anything. So, if you go to Sand Dune Customs, you type in the promo code Nick, you will get nothing off because it's just me, giving a shout out to a buddy. And so, that is one of the main things I want to talk to you about today. So, I have to say, I'm sorry. I apologize. And the reason being is that I put out a potty training video. And so he has a puppy, and naturally he wanted to watch the potty training video to find out how to potty train. And he's watching it, and 5 minutes in, I'm still talking about stuff he already knows. Yeah, got more minutes in, okay, yep, I know how to clean up. Yeah, I know how to use a kennel if I need to. Okay, yeah, okay, I don't care about hanging bells on the door. How do you potty train a dog? And I realized that after I put it out, cheers, that Um, what happened when I was making that video is that I wanted to make sure to go over some of the basics, but then I also didn't want it to be a full-on training video because I'm still trying to work out. Maybe a little loud in the background, everybody, if you can hear her. She's gonna make her presence known. That's fine. Have fun. Good girl. Play with play with yourself. No, that not play with Daddy. I know. Daddy's doing a podcast and you're bumping the table. Thank you. So, um, all right. Yep, that's definitely her making herself known for the podcast, as always. If it's going to be one of the pets, I'd like to not have her as a distraction, but if it's just me talking to you as genuine as possible, or if it's me doing the dog training videos, it does seem to make sense to have a little bit of that ambiance go on in the background, sometimes more than others. Sometimes you wouldn't even be able to tell because she's taking a nap. But she ain't napping today, and that's fine. If you lost it, I'm not getting it for you. You're gonna either have to do a deep dive or you're gonna have to find another toy to play with. Sorry about that. So I did not actually get into some of the bare bones about potty training because, again, I wasn't sure how much training I want to do on the cast and how much I might just want to do and get paid for it because I'm not making a time off of this. So, yeah, I realize now how frustrating it would be to click on a video for potty training, especially if it's your introduction to the channel, and get nothing out of it. So I am going to remove that one, do a replacement one on dog breeds, where I say right out in the gate that it's like, hey, I'm not going to get into details. I'm just going to give some examples about why you might want to consider dog breeds if you're considering a puppy adoption dog, or if you already have one and they have some interesting tendencies and you want to get a DNA test on them. So I'm gonna do that. And again, this has always been, I mean, right out of the gate. It isn't like I led you astray. I told you this was going to be a brand new thing, work in progress, something that I've never done before, and there will be some growing pains. And so, thankfully, not many people are watching it, so they don't get to see the mess ups. But I also didn't just want to discreetly, remove that, put it on another one, um, because, but, and then not tell you because full disclosure, I'm not embarrassed about the fact that, I made a mistake. I plan to make many more. Otherwise, I'm not going to learn anything. So, that's what's going on with the dog channel. In case there's like one or two of you that actually noticed that there was a potty training video, now there isn't anymore, and now there's a dog breed video that wasn't released on the usual Friday. And I do still plan on doing one on Friday. This is going to be me making up for it by unfortunately having to do two this week where I already do three a week. So, just more on my plate. But yeah, I know that I don't, script them maybe as well as I should. My arrogance going into this, my, you know, um, big head just thought, I've been talking to animals for, 10 years practically. So, yeah, I should be able to just turn the camera on and, be able to vamp for 30 minutes without much of a script. There might be some ums and ahs, but I'll cover most of the basics. It might be out of order, but that'll make you watch till the end, won't it? It made sense at the time. I now see from, an outsider's point of view looking in that sometimes it might not be the desired result, and I might actually turn people off rather than get them to say, "Hey, that was some pretty interesting points. Let's see what else he's got." So yeah, right out the gate, it was my buddy Josh at Sand Dune Customs that pointed that out. So as a thank you, want to give yet another shout out to him, and did do the replacement video for him, and hopefully what do end up becoming the vans. So so right off the bat, I just wanted to get that out there, whew, off the chest, into the ether. So now that that's done, what's going on? What you been up to? Myself, had a interesting weekend. So forever in the bedroom, we've had the bed set up in a way that, my girl has to climb over me in order to, get into her side of the bed. That's just, how it's been set up for a while, and, always wanted to change it. So what we ended up doing is when we got a new bed and bed frame, we finally took the time to organize it so that there's a clear path to both sides of the bed while still having plenty of room for dressers and stuff. And the lighting's better, the room's better. It's just it's a game changer. That's one thing that I know has always bugged her, but she agreed with me that there's a little bit of masculinity still in me, where I always want to be on the side of the bed that's closest to the door in case there is trouble. I'm the first one that has to deal with it. Who knows how it's going to turn out. I don't know if that's chauvinist or now, because it used to be chivalrous. Now it might be chauvinist. I don't know. Technically, since she's had more work with like troubled kids and stuff, she actually knows more grappling maneuvers than I do. So she might actually be the better one in the situation, but um, it's just one of those things where uh, I I absolutely think that the sexes should be equal, and there's also a little bit in me where I miss that we don't get the door for them. That I'm completely fine with if a ship's ever going down, it's women and children first. The children especially, should never be a debate, but the women, it's like I see the absolute value in that, where it's like yeah. I mean, if we're already going to agree with the kids that that they get priority, well, we've already established that there's a pecking order, and I was always raised in the idea that it's going to go to her, and that if I'm sleeping in the bed, that I'm the one closest to the door, and so just I want to put that out there for the people that are just like, well, if why don't you just give her that side, and have you always climb over her. It's like why did that have to be a thing? you know that's just how I am. I feel like it's just that little thing where it's like I don't know, maybe, hey, you know what, let's put it this way, it can be selfish then. Let's do it for selfish reasons. So um if I don't want to be for a chivalrous reason, then let's say it's just because, well, if it's gonna happen, I want to go first so I don't have to see that happen to her. There you go. I can still be the bad guy and not have it be for noble purposes. But no, that's just genuinely, how I am, and she was more than happy to, climb over because she knew that it was for a decent reason. Not, it's like, you do it, I don't want to. So it wasn't anything like that. But yeah. So that was Saturday. That was a nice one. We got that done. A couple of things. Didn't get to relax as much as we would have liked to. We get to watch a little Forge and Fire. Shout out to anybody else who's as obsessed with the show as we are. Like, I honestly feel like I'm working in a place that has a lot of scrap metal, and I'm almost like of the mind of just saying fuck it and waste some money, which I really shouldn't be doing, and setting up a little forge and dunk tank, and seeing if I can get some scrap metal for free or just a couple of bucks, from the boss, and you know trying my hand at making knives. It's just they make it. It's just so much cooler than so many competition shows out there. Back in the day, more than now, but they always seem to be about, um, you know, fighting dirty. Definitely like voting other people off, which I always hated. On any show where it's just like well, technically you are the best for the team, but because of that, I feel like you're going to be more competition because I want to be the one that wins, and then they get voted off, and it's just like no, honestly, you know, the best should win, and you should also be sportsmanlike along the way, and that's one of the things that I love about Forge and Fire is that it's one of those wholesome ones that kind of like Face Off and those where it's like they're building something, they're making something, they're producing, they're not just fighting over a title, say, and they're often helping out each other. If one of them's having a problem with the art with the welder, then it's just like, hey, here, you gotta get done this sitting. Oh, thanks, man. It's just like, or hey, we gotta cut this thing up to make a canister. So it's like, all right, you get that in, I'll get that in, you get the grinder, and then they work together. Kind of like with Face Off, it's like, hey, I can't get this mold, off. Can you help me out? And it's just like, yeah, I got a couple seconds, and they help them out. The camaraderie, I always think, is so much more entertaining than just the like train wreck of watching like people spitting on each other. Just it. I don't often go for the wholesome because sometimes I feel like I'm placated to. I hate that feeling. I don't like it's just like the aw from Full House. Like the audience shouldn't have to tell me to feel like this is an aw moment. I always hated that, and you have to really hit it right. Like a good example is Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec, just like any show, like once they found their tone and their voice, like it ended up being a wholesome one, and that's not what I expected. When with the first episode or two, especially with the Ron Swanson character, it ended up being one of the most wholesome shows, and I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And that normally would have been one that I would have been completely off my radar. It's insane that ended up being one of my favorite shows, especially for one. I mean, if you know you're snowed in during the pandemic. I hope because I'm a little late to the subject now, but I hope that if you end up having to stay at home and just binge watch a show, that you went with that one because there's not a better one during bad times than just a silly wholesome one, and that one definitely counted. I mean that's why Steve Martin was so popular. Like, pardon me, just coming out of the Great Depression, like he had the silliest type of humor, and that was just what everybody needed because they were basically going through the dark ages of their generation, and so having something that was wholesome and silly, and it was just what everybody needed, and so I feel like that was a show that if we weren't trying so hard to be productive when we were in locked up, excuse me, that was one that both of us probably would have been fine redoing, but instead, I mean, have you ever tried so hard to be productive that you actually end up getting nothing done? I kind of feel like that's how the lockdown went for us. We did get a few things done. We did start a new diet that we sticking to this very day, which is awesome. Shout out to the plan. I think I mentioned that in the previous one without permission. I'm figuring right now nobody's watching it, so if I don't get permission, I'm not really gonna get in trouble. And hopefully, if by the time it does get popular, then people just appreciate the shout out, and or I would have gotten reached out to them by then. But Lynn something, I don't have the book in front of me. I can't remember her name at the moment, but yeah, that was about the only thing we ended up doing. We had so many other plans, like we have some kayaks that she wanted to make an A-frame for because right now we just kind of have them on top of a pallet at the moment, and that never ended up coming to fruition. I mean, heck, almost none of the, we actually have gotten more. I hate to say it, but I think we've actually gotten more organizing the house done since I switched to weekends, so that we have Saturday and Sunday off together. I feel like we've had more um, improvements on the house since I started the new job than we did during the whole 2 months shared of the lockdown, which is nuts. But I mean, at, to be fair to us and to anybody else out there that feels like they could have done better, yeah, some people are built for it. Like I know that there's a reason why there was the Renaissance period. It's just like people were locked in, and the people that did have the knack for art, had all day to paint and get better and have some strong emotions that came out in on the canvas, and so I get the whole Renaissance period, and I get the people that are naturally inclined to um, be handy in the house and or create art. Then they just in a way probably were related. They were like, I'm getting unemployment more than I would have gotten if it was just me trying to avoid working, and I'm making bank and able to focus on things that I love. I mean, more power to them. Some people, I guess they say that the introverts really thrive during this, and then the extroverts really had an issue. And I guess, I mean, especially the first month for us was, at least for me, was horrendous. She had already been for a month, so she, had that slight advantage of already knowing how the game worked with the unemployment and the being at home, and then also still having me working. So there was like a little bit of security there where it's just like, okay, well, even though it took like I think the whole first month for the unemployment checks to start coming through, which I'm not faulting anybody. I mean, who knew that was going to happen, so there was going to be that big of a backlog. But still, if it wasn't for me still working, that first month, then it would have been worse. So then when I got locked down, well, same thing. I'd had some somebody that had already done the ins and outs, the frustrations of the unemployment, um, and hers had already started to come in. So like I had that kind of peace of mind, and yet still the first month was really bad, like for me. And I'll admit it. It's just something that when your whole world gets turned upside down, and it's already happened, at least once before in your life, that it's just like, well, now I'm immune to my world getting turned upside down, and I feel like I definitely handled it better than I would have had I never had my world get turned upside down. But that first month was rough, and there's no shame in admitting that. And if any of you had issues, I commend you for getting through it and being here to listen to me today, listen to my dumb face. Um, and then the second month, it was weird. It was easier, but in a way, it was almost worse because the first month was bad. So like we tried to keep ourselves busy with making plans and getting better and doing stuff, and then the second month where we're more accustomed to like to the Groundhog Day of it all. Um, that's when we kind of grew a little complacent, complacent. I think it was complicit with you know, basically not having much to do. So we would, get up, um, migrate to the couch, play on our phones and, do breakfasts and then kind of play on our phones on the couch until, lunchtime and so on and so forth, all the way through dinner and then back to bed. And it wasn't good, So, uh, in a way, when we get back to work, it was kind of a relief, even though then work was a whole new animal, with all the masks and stuff, and um, you know, suppliers, customers, like tensions were high and needs weren't being met, on all aspects of it, and so you know. It was rough, and I'm sorry if I'm talking about this and you're just like, hey, I didn't, click on you to hear about this and relive it. I clicked on it to, you know, be entertained, be caught up and informed, and hopefully maybe the occasional accidental bit of dropping some dog knowledge, and or a funny tidbit. So I apologize that I went off on that tangent, but it was hilarious that this came up just yesterday. Somebody was like, "Women go with therapists, men make a podcast," or so. It was something weird. It was something weird where it was just like, how come? No, no, no. What it was is it was like, how come guys um, start a podcast instead of going to therapy or something? That's what it was. And so it was funny. We're like, I'm, a month into doing this, and I was just like, oh, is that what I'm doing? I mean, I've briefly dabbled in the idea of doing therapy. I mean, who doesn't need the occasional top up? And then I started doing this, and I was just like, huh, is this potentially unintentionally um, a supplement for that? And I mean, who knows? If by just getting some stuff out there, and I do feel better, and it helps somebody out there that was just like, hey, I was kind of going through the same thing. So even though this wasn't a light episode, I'm kind of glad you talked about it because it made me feel not alone. Um, so I'm gonna keep it in. I'm keeping it in. That's why that's my phrase is, I hope to see the benefit of the awkward times, and that is definitely one that I could see being a benefit. Is dude, I mean, kind of sucks that you just put that out in public like that. Sorry for the shaking. She's still trying to get attention from Daddy because she refuses to go under the couch to get her Kong, baby girl. It's under there. Go get it. I don't. I'm sorry. I love you, but come on. Um. So yeah, this is gonna always be just kind of me going out there. So just lighten the mood, real quick, just to break my train of thought, so that I have trouble getting even back to it. Um, so I did a segment in a previous episode about things that you still do even though you're an adult that you used to do as a kid. I think some of my examples were maybe you know jumping onto the back of the shopping cart when you're going through the parking lot to your car and using it kind of like a skateboard and just like and riding it. And it's funny that I remember as I got older, when I was really young, an empty shopping cart was enough weight so that I could do the, jump on the back end and it would be fine. Now I'm older and an adult, and so I remember distinctly the moment where, oh, I'm too heavy to be able to jump on the back of a shopping cart and not have it tip back unless I lean forward, like way forward. So I actually remember that specific time. Oh, now she's sulking on the bed because I won't play with her. Okay, baby girl. I will definitely, once we finish this up, but she's adorable. Anyway, yeah, I remember getting to be the size where it's just like, oh, now I got to lean forward, otherwise the cart will tip up unless I have a lot of groceries in there. So I slightly grew out of the habit because I just started not riding on the back of the shopping cart. But outside, when you go to the parking lot and it's loaded with groceries, I still do, and I still love it, and I hope to do it until I am rickety enough that I don't want to risk a hip, But anyway, so a new one that I came up with today was the 7-year-old me. Whenever a plane went by in the sky, and I would just be like, "Ah, cool." And I realized the 37-year-old me, and I see a plane going across the sky, ah, cool. And now like it's a little bit different because now I'm just like oh, what kind of plane is it? Single engine? Is it you know, military fighter jet? When I was living close to Pease Air Force Base back in the day, you'd see a lot of military planes, which is always awesome. Um, and then it's like when it's a helicopter, it's just like, oh, is it like a news traffic one? Is it a military one? That kind of stuff. So now I pay a little bit more attention to the actual differences too. I mean, like back then, I probably could have cared less if it was a commercial flight plane or if it was squadron fighter jets. I probably had the same awe no matter what it was. And now, it isn't that I don't have awe. I mean, it's still something that I just love, like looking up at. Like that's why I've always been jealous of astronauts, but even just people that live near where they would do the rocket launches. Where it's just like, hey, like maybe, once every couple of years, I actually get to see one of them things go off into space. Like, as a kid that grew up with the, those model rockets and stuff. I mean, that in itself was cool enough. I mean, can you imagine, one of that on a grand scale? Like, yeah. So that was one thing that I thought of the other day that I wanted to share is, make things light a little bit. Is I love thinking of the things that you still enjoy doing when you're older than when you were younger. Like one thing that's been ruined for me, like now I'm gonna get negative again. But one thing that's been ruined for me is chewing gum. I I hate to say it, but as of making this video, I still struggle with smoking. I do still have I still smoke cigarettes. And so, since I was young, I always had an oral fixation. So, like I would eat all the candy on the planet if I could. So gum was always a good substitute because it was just like, oh, I feel like I'm still doing the chewing thing, but I'm not necessarily getting any, extra, sugar and stuff in. And so now, I would definitely probably still like to be a gum chewer, but it just feels like either it's sugar gum, which I know is just doing nothing for my teeth. Like, I've always been overly sensitive about my teeth, and you know, it's funny that this is going to be like a talking pride point moment, but the fact that even if I was like stumbly drunk, back in the 20s when I would just get pretty badly drunk, that even though I wouldn't be able to maintain my balance and I would crash into things and break glasses, I still would brush my teeth before going to bed. Like that's how ingrained it was in me. And so I've always been very sensitive about like any stains I have in my teeth, any the fact that the lower ones are a little crooked, but cavities most of all, because the first cavity that I got, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but the very first cavity I ever got was when I was in the middle of growing my adult teeth and still had some baby teeth. I don't know if any of you can even remember that far back. For most of us, it's not even really a memory that stuck, but with me, it was because I got my first, and so far as I know, because I haven't been to the dentist in a bit, so far as I know, my first and only cavity when I was young. I had been brushing, but I had baby teeth and I had adult teeth coming in, and the cavity was on one of the frickin' adult teeth, and I couldn't have been more devastated. I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like these ones I've just only gotten like recently. So first of all, how can a cavity already be there? Second of all, like why couldn't it have been one of the teeth that I had had since before I had memories, and like it was going away anyway. Like this is one of the teeth that I'm stuck with for the rest of my life, and it already has a cavity in it. Fuck that. I was so livid, and I've been so self conscious about like maintaining my teeth health. Like it's funny that I think everybody in a way has a bit of an addictive personality. Now, whether you can channel that into something good or bad, sometimes is going to be a very very hard life choice up to you. Some of you get lucky where you're just naturally addicted to the good ones, but I am just happy that now I'm kind of addicted to flossing. Where when I was a kid, that was one that was painful for me because my gums would always bleed. Well, this is the thing about flossing, that yeah, it's like that self fulfilling prophecy. Like if you don't floss that often, then your gums aren't used to it, so they will bleed anytime you do, and then that just deters you from doing it the next time, and yada 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 yada, until you get used to it, and then you're just like, oh my god, I have food stuck between my teeth. I'm going to be thinking about this literally until I can find a flosser or some actual floss. Like it has become an addiction in a good way, and so I don't even remember how I got off on that tangent, but probably just trying to talk about positive things, trying to get it back. I might be gone for good. Teeth cavities. Now I'm doing the backtrack thing, and this is going to be infuriating for anybody listening because you either remember it, or you could care less. You weren't paying attention either, and you're just like, who cares? Just go get on with the next subject. Talk about friggin' sports. Yeah, this is going to be your channel that you turn to when you need some relief from sports talk. I do apologize. I'm not into it at all. Um, I mean, very very bare minimum. Um, this is all you need to know about me in sports. So, literally, I'm that a hole that watches the big game because I don't know when this airs. I don't want to get flagged for saying the S word. If it's too close to S word time. But I only watch the big game for the commercials. I apologize. Unless it's one of those things. It's really weird. If you're not into sports, okay, this is insane. But if you're not into sports, I I'm not at all. I still somehow am a Patriots fan because that's how like community works somehow. Tribalism and all that stuff, like somehow community works where I'm like, go Pats. I'm like, yay Red Sox, fuck the Yankees, and I don't care about sports at all, and I still feel that in my heart. I actually feel that in my heart. I actually am happy if I hear that the Patriots won a Super Bowl. I'm actually, in awe of Tom Brady's fucking tenacity. That's not even the right word. Like endurance. It still doesn't quite do it. Like just friggin' long haul power. I don't care if I'm not finding the right word. Just the fact that the man should be walking around like he has braces on his legs. He should not be doing so good as he's still doing. Football is a brutal sport that does not do any favors to a lot of people. It's tragic seeing some of these guys. I don't follow sports, but I follow so many podcasters that follow sports that thankfully they don't usually go too much into what happened during the game, because they're just like, if you're a fan, you were there. I'll just do the highlights and then move on and talk about the players. I'm amazed at the memory of a lot of sports fans that they have for the stats, for the players' names, for the players, there's so much math and stuff going on that it's hilarious, and a lot of intelligent comedians before me have. I just sound like I call myself an intelligent comedian. Far from it, but um, so many before me have pointed out that when the jock back in the day would push the guy in glasses and call him a nerd because he was into math and remembered, equations and stuff. And then they would already be, or would grow up to be, the person that had a photographic memory for stats and, all this stuff, in regards to sports, where they're just like an encyclopedia, so much to the point where the nerd would be jealous, and potentially later on in life just be like, you friggin' nerd, you remembered who the quarterback in the 70s was for the Rams that weren't even called the Rams back then. They have this friggin' insane knowledge that it's kind of hilarious that it's just like, nerd, you memorized numbers and history and stuff, and it's just like, dude, you want to talk about numbers and history? Let's look at your friggin' sports knowledge, dude. Friggin', oh my god, it's not mine. I'm not gonna try and claim it as my own, but it is such a funny, hilarious observation of the fact that, yeah, that's a lot. Anyway, and that's one of the only things that keeps it interesting. That and the fact that some of the podcasters that I enjoy, uh, shout out to Josh Potter, by the way, because I was almost sorely tempted to be going, I apologize for the comments that I made, Red Sox on bat. And I had put out a video that was misleading. Strike one. I almost did that. I mean, it would have been stealing, but I would have obviously given a shout out. But for instance, Josh Potter, he talks about sports, but let's be honest. Most of the fun stuff to focus on is some of the ne'er dwellings that they're doing, off of the field, and so he keeps it that way. And I think what's the best part about that show that I watch is that he can't help to seem but surround himself with people that do not know about sports at all. And it kind of helps, because I feel like a lot of people that are watching him for a sense of humor, not necessarily for their love of sports. But with him, he's like, well, I got to fill a podcast somehow, and this is what I'm interested in, so you're going to have to listen to it. But it makes it better because, well, if he talks to the producer and the producer doesn't know what the heck he's talking about, neither do I. Well, now we have a good podcast, because he's either going to explain it, or I'm at least going to have a comrade in the game, where I'm just like, dude, I don't know either. So yeah. Anyway, hey, what do I mean anyway? I mean, this is the thing. Is this is what's been going on in my life. Well, you either have the stuff that went on during the weekend, which I can always get back to at some point. But I mean, I got an hour to fill, so no rush. And some of the stuff that I do is watch TV. I watch podcasts. I love Collider crew, or no, the quarter crew. Anyway, the guys that do the VFX reacts and stuntman reacts and stuff. Those guys are awesome. So I watch a lot of podcasts and TV shows. I I don't want to do it again, but I briefly did talk about the Falcon and Winter Soldier in a previous one. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Fat Man Beyond, so I mean, you already get Kevin Smith and Mark Bernardin doing a far better job of that than I ever could. So I don't necessarily want to get into it, but shout out to those guys like Mark Bernardin. I mean, it was probably pretty obvious to a lot of mega fans, but Mark Bernardin called what was in the case. What's in the box? Mark Bernardin was just like, dude, it's gonna be some Wakanda wings with a Captain America themed costume, and boom, and there it was. So, could it's just it's fun. That's what I've been doing, so it's hard not to talk about it and also not sound like I'm stealing from other podcasters. But it's like, let's be honest, they're not worried about a small fry like me at this point, and if they are later on, here's some photographic evidence that I tried to give them as much kudos and shout outs and admittance that I'm kind of piggybacking off of them as I could. So There you have it. I feel like I'm sinking lower into this, but it doesn't matter. I'm getting comfortable. You should get comfortable too, you know? Not too comfortable if you're driving. You know, don't fall asleep to the sound of my voice. I know I'm probably putting a lot of you to sleep. It's pretty boring stuff that I'm talking about. But I still, you know, hope that you're being safe wherever you are listening. Um, how freaking sick is it having a job? I mean, I'm sorry if you don't, if you're out there that, um, you know, I've been blessed to have two jobs in a row, one with permission, one without, that I could just listen to podcasts all day while working as long as I can keep my mind on task. And I can. It's actually getting to be so that I definitely notice my tinnitus when I do stuff like this where I'm talking to you. Probably why I'm not letting any, you know, breaks in between the sentences. They just keep on going on. Like, I heard a person say that a speech coach told them if they wanted to have a southern accent, that you just kind of have all the letters, all the words lean on each other. So that was interesting. But yeah, I definitely get it from my parents as far as, you know, both came from relatively big families, so they definitely learned how to talk and, you know, if there's ever a pause in the conversation to jump on it and not have too much of a pause happen with you because if you have a pause then the other person is going to be able to talk and you don't want that to happen so you could just keep on talking even though you're not necessarily sure what you're going to say next because you definitely okay, sorry about that, so unprofessional. I do this on purpose though. I definitely want not to get distracted too badly by doing this talking to you that I don't also keep up with the important things. So yeah, anyway, if you ever lose your train of thought and you don't want the conversation to stop, just keep on talking until you get it back or until somebody else interrupts you. And then if you get it back right away, then that's on you. You have to deal with it. You can't interrupt them again. Anyway, I don't know. I'm just, you know, talking like I wanted to. Anyway, so I don't know if you could tell that just really distracted me having that go off. I was planning on it and I was actually hoping for it. In fact, one of the things I was kind of hoping for was that it would have been Josh because I planned on, you know, giving him a shout out for his business, thanking him for doing the, you know, apology episode, and then also if he had called, I have like one thing, sorry, like two short things and one long thing that I kind of want to tell him about when it comes to potty training that I didn't mention on our conversation when he called to berate me, letting me know that it's just like, dude, you effed up. You did a potty training video that didn't talk about potty training. So I apologized and I kind of gave him some pointers. And then, um, you know, dinner was ready, so I got distracted. And then I completely forgot to talk about a couple of points. So I was like, you know what? If he calls while I'm doing this, I'm going to let him know he's on the podcast. And I'm just going to do a little serendipity, a little comeuppance, you know, a little payment is that I was going to tell him the things that I forgot to mention. And if it happened during the podcast, then so be it. Because, you know, that's kind of on me for putting out a subpar video. Sorry, I got the burps now. So I was kind of hopeful that that was going to be him. And it wasn't, but it's all good in the neighborhood. I feel like I'm gonna get better over time, and that there's a little evidence of that. Especially, all right, so especially when I've noticed that I have these long awkward pauses closer to the beginning of an episode, and then towards the end, that's when I feel like, all right, well, I guess that's about it. I'm about to sign off. Oh, well, you know, real quick, I did just think of this, and then I just thought of that, just thought of that, just thought of that, just thought of that, just thought of that. All right, now I'm gonna end. Like I seem to pick up some momentum sometimes towards the end, and that is, I hope, a new muscle that's flexing and making itself stronger to the point where the awkward pauses towards the beginnings quickly start to fade away to the point where you almost kind of miss him and then you're just like, oh, he did an awkward pause, he hasn't done that in a couple episodes. I don't know if that's gonna happen, but we'll see. Well, you know, one can hope, one can pray, one can dream, one can do whatever the heck the things that they do. And so yeah, basically the Saturday, getting back to the weekend, I've run out of things. I've run out of tangents and random brain firings. I am getting back to the weekend. coming full circle. So, Saturday had its good points, and I definitely love anytime that there's just a little thing that gets done, in the house. Um, there is a lot to be said when they say, if you're ever having, like cluttered house, cluttered mind. If you're ever feeling, kind of caught up in your thoughts and stuff, and you're just like not feeling great, sometimes it can help to, you know, do your bed, clean up the kitchen, reorganize the bedroom so that you can both access the bed without having to climb on each other. Little things like that, and then all of a sudden, it's just like, wow, I felt like a little bit looser, at work, for some reason. I can't put my finger on it. Maybe it was that. So we did have that for Saturday. Sunday was interesting. So, um, moving is always going to be a bitch. That is universal. You can plan ahead. I mean, again, other comedians have done this, so much better than I have. But, I'm quoting somebody specific, and I wish I could remember their name because this is definitely all of them. But they're just like, when you start out, you wrap it up in paper, put the paper in the box, you wrap up the other one, and then you label on the outside of the box, these are the cups. And then by the end of it, you're just like, kitchen stuff, and like, if it breaks, it breaks. Just, get it out of here. Moving is never the, wonderful, beautiful, lovely thing that it could potentially be if everything just fell into the right places. No, instead, so for instance, last week, U-Haul, the entire site was down worldwide. We went to 3 different U-Hauls, just trying to get straps, carrying straps so that we could just, do some stuff on our own, while we're waiting for it to come back up. And, even that took 3 stores, but it was just crazy seeing all 3 of them having angry customers saying, what are you talking about? It's down. And it is what it is, I mean, I'm not shouting at U-Haul, for like, oh no, it's like, dude, you guys, that's the times that we live in is like, everything is so online that when online isn't onlining, then the world is offline. And it's just scary because I grew up in a generation where if the store lost, communication to the server or whatever, heck, even if there was a power outage, you could actually still pay with cash because the drawer didn't have to be used through the electronics. Like you could actually just open it up and make the change in your head. You can even still use the credit card. Credit cards had raised numbers back in the day. I feel so old talking about this. That you could actually have this machine that went shunk shunk and it made a carbon copy. Do you even know what carbon copy is? Do you know what a piece of paper on top of another piece of paper is all about? Well, it would make a carbon copy of the credit card numbers and you just run it afterwards and you just, expect the person to be honest about the fact that it's still a working card and that they didn't just take advantage of a power outage or a lack of service to the server, that you would be able to just give them expired one and just walk away with some free merch. It was a different time, and it's something that it's crazy that I'm not old because any old person is going to look at this and be like, shut up, you're not old. But I'm old enough to be able to reminisce about the days of old and, blowing into Nintendo cartridges. It's been done 1,000 times. I'm not making a joke about it. I'm just, mentioning that that is absolutely my generation. Is when now I realize that I could have had the exact same experience with so much less effort if I had just had a friggin' Q-tip and an alcohol and swabbed it. I can't believe the amount of time I spent blowing and then which wasn't doing anything more than ruining the mechanism. Like putting the friggin', cartridge on top of the other cartridge. I mean, people that are young are just completely lost at this point. But I mean, this is the stuff we had to deal with. Like, I'm sorry, your loading screen takes a while. If you're playing a modern video game, it's like those are the hardships of this generation. Is that it's just like oh the loading screen is a while like we we were happy when we saw the loading screen, and even then it wasn't a guarantee that the thing wasn't going to glitch about 5 seconds into the game. 5 seconds to 15 minutes to 2 hours into the game that didn't have a save feature. 5 hours to beat a game that didn't have a save feature. I mean, oh my god, like, fine, I will. I will get off on a Nintendo tangent, and you guys can't stop me because you're not here. Haha, no, 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 no. So I swear to God, the game changer of the Legend of Zelda cartridge. It was gold. It had a save file, and it was the most immersive, fun to play game I think that that one might be for the amount of hours that it has sucked into, that I've sucked it sucked into. I can't even talk right now, but I just so much of my life went to that game, and I hate to say far later into my life than I would care to admit, because that's the beauty of it. The battery still works. Like, I don't know what battery they used that 20 years later still held enough of a charge to be able to save that game. But I mean, why is that not the? I mean, is this some miracle battery that, like, that we could be using to fuel like Teslas and not even realize? I mean, like, it just seems insane that anything has that kind of longevity. I had a nose hair trimmer that, no, it wasn't a nose hair trimmer. It was similarly shaped. It was something, let's just call it a nose hair trimmer. So I had a nose hair trimmer because that's the life when you get older. You friggin' get nose hairs, whatever. It happens. Just get over it and just check yourself in the mirror regularly so you don't feel embarrassed about having one go whoop. Anyway, so let's say it was the nose hair trimmer, left the battery in, and then you open it up, and then there's green corrosion all over the terminals, and it's just, a complete shit show. And that happens within like 6 months. And somehow this friggin' like, wonky cartridge from like, crazy like, blowing the friggin' connections technology, that this battery lasted 20 plus years. I mean, shout out to like, you know, the, the it's insane to think of like, even like, especially nowadays. Like nowadays, you're used to stuff that draws so much power like your phone that you're just like, wow, a phone that I didn't have to charge every single night overnight, like for the, since day one. You're just like, wait, it's a phone that can last a couple days before charge. Like that's the technology that we're dealing with right now. And so like we're talking about a battery that has no way of recharging. It's literally a battery inside of a plastic cartridge that somehow managed to hold enough of a charge to save a game over 20 years old. I mean, mind blowing. That is just mind blowing. It's literally just anyway, stuff like that. All right, how about that? There's one for you. Stuff that hasn't changed since when you were younger. Um, I have gotten into modern video games quite a bit. Like Fallout is an amazing series. Same thing with the Elder Scrolls series. But hands down, I don't do it often, but I could easily pick up a old Nintendo game. First of all, be elated that I can actually get it to play, and then be able to like not speed run, because I've seen some speed runners. Oh my god, that's crazy. But kind of speed run through a game and just be like, oh, I remember. Oh, look at the secret room and stuff, and just have that teeniest tiniest bit of nostalgia that I remember the excitement that I had when I first discovered a thing in the game, or like, it does suck that it gets notoriously difficult to get that same sense of elation later on in life. Like, that I actually get more elation from a nostalgia memory these days than pretty much a thing a year that I can manage to have happen to me. That I have the same type of um, you know excitement, heart beating out of the chest. It's just like, if I get lucky, once a year I can find a moment that I had that I got the same amount of excitement out of using the warp tunnels in Super Mario. Like, but I do like that we, as long as it's a healthy amount, you don't want to, put off chores and, skip work in order to, play an old video game just to get a little bit of nostalgia. But I mean, if you do it every once in a great while just to, kind of get a little bit of that kid feeling back, I mean, ain't nothing wrong with that. And the fact that back in the day they made them so hardy that that thing has probably been mishandled. I mean, not just in gameplay, but just in moving from place to place. I remember there was a point in my 20s where I felt like I didn't stay in one place for more than 6 months before then moving to the next apartment. It was insane. And that thing came with me every time. And that's a lot of bumps, that's a lot of bangs, that's a lot of, dust and stuff. And the thing still is going strong. And it's such a cool thing to be able to go back and revisit. And you know, like I said, as long as it's done in a healthy way, you should definitely try and do that as often as you can. I mean, I remember that flying a kite felt like the closest that I would get to being able to spacewalk. I was connected to a kite that um, once and only once, but it was a day I'll always remember. Once and only once, I was able to get the kite high up enough to actually touch a cloud, and I mean, I teared up then, and I'm almost tearing up now thinking about it. Where I was just like, this is the first time in my life that I've touched the sky, and that was a beautiful moment. Like the kite is actually touching the cloud. Like if I could figure out a way to like secure the line, to anchor the kite, and to climb up this rope, I could actually touch the cloud. And like I think that's how come another thing that hasn't changed since I was a kid, flying in an airplane. If I can get the window seat, I'm a little kid, and I love poking through clouds and seeing things get smaller and seeing things get bigger. I mean, um, I hope to never lose that. Like, I would love to be a comedian, and comedy is definitely changing. Some people are crushing it in the pandemic days where they're not touring, they're doing social media, podcasts, making a killing, and more power to them. And I love it, and I want comedy to never die. So if you need to evolve and find new platforms so that you can still make a living off of doing that and only that, so that you're at your sharpest, then I am all for it. And I just I don't know. I would still like to. I'm just almost glad that if it does eventually happen, and it hasn't happened yet, that it didn't happen when you had to be on a plane 24/7, and that's still always going to be a thing. So I hope that I can still do it often enough that I'm just like, I can't believe I have a career where I get to like be on a plane like all the time, but not so much that it's like a grind that's like making you sick, making you tired, and that all you want to do is just sleep if you can, because of all the weird hours and like the jet lag that you're getting. I would it would have been sad if I had lost the love for flying if I had to do it more often. Kind of like driving. So I miss when I first learned how to drive, um, the freedom that I felt. Now I'm older and I'm just like, there's no freedom. You're forever tied to, even if you paid the whole thing off entirely, you're still tied to the maintenance. And like, it's actually a life suck, is what it is. Now if you're the one that can drive, now, it's chores. It's to work. I mean, um, I don't hate driving. I mean, I still like it. I still enjoy it. I still like that I'm somewhat competent at it, and I hope to keep that well into my 90s, like my grandpa did. I'm so freaking proud of him, and I hope that I have those genes. Um, I'm never gonna knock driving, but holy crap, was it just my favorite thing when I first was able to. Um, I would drive just for the sake of driving. There was no destination. In fact, I would try to find bigger and better and safer loops. And when I say safer, I mean because, not only was I also a new driver, but at the time I wasn't, the smartest about it. And I would definitely, smoke weed, when I was driving. Not proud of it, but, it is what it is. I'm not proud of it in the sense that, like, I don't think that if you smoke weed and then you do end up driving that same day that you're as bad as somebody that is say drunk driving over .08, you know and that's debatable. I mean, now that it's finally, I mean, as of recording this, like we're still very much in the early stages of it being legal. I don't know that um, if they're going to have like oh, you have a .08 weed alcohol level, like ish, like comparison thing. You know what I mean? So I don't know that that's ever going to be a thing, but I definitely feel like driving around, smoking wasn't necessarily as bad as if I had been driving around drinking, but still it was illegal at the time, so it, there was a little bit of the thrill of that. But I digress. I guess I'm admitting this because like it was 420 recently, and I just kind of thought about some of my, earlier weed days, and it's just so crazy to see that not necessarily where I live, but across the country that it's becoming legal. Where it was a pun intended pipe dream when I was young. So yeah, that's something I used to do. But the point is that the sheer fun of driving, like I there had to have been a brief moment like where whatever parent I was living with, was elated that I had my license because it's just like, oh, we don't have any eggs for the cakes, and I was just like, I'll go to the store and get them. Give me some cash, I'll drive to the store, and it's just like they're like, oh my god, I have this person that actually wants to go do chores, as long as it involves driving to and from a place, like they feel so free and elated and accomplished, and like I miss driving being fun, and it still can be, fun, like if you go back to driving a standard if you haven't in a long time, a muscle car or somewhat, when we had to move, like I was talking about on Sunday, I might not even finish up talking about the Sunday thing. We're getting close to the hour, but I did drive, the U-Haul, and so driving a box truck again, first time in a while. It was kind of nice seeing that I still had a little bit of the skills. I had to back it up onto the, not onto the porch, but it's like we pulled the ramp out and we had to back the ramp onto the porch, in order to move, stuff, and so. I had to kitty corner it and have somebody directing me because I couldn't actually see the porch. By the time I got lined up, you can't see it. You just have to trust the person doing this. And, I did relatively well. I mean, I didn't, knock a railing over, or anything too bad. So, um, and at one point, we were on a, street that was narrow enough and there weren't any driveways that, I couldn't turn around. It was a dead end. So I basically had to back up until I could pull onto, onto the person that we know's lawn, and then do it that way. And so I did that fine. Didn't hit any trees or knock over any mailboxes and stuff. So it was nice being able to see that I still had it, but it isn't like it was fun. I mean, like I was still like more mindful of the fact that I had a bigger vehicle to take care of. It wasn't mine, so like I had to where even though it was insured, so it wasn't fun. It was definitely like cool to have a different experience with driving because most of the time you just get stuck in driving the same vehicle that you own for most of it, and most of it is going to and from places that you have to go to. I have to go to the store. I have to go to work. I have to get home. I have to go do this thing. So now, usually when you're driving and it's for fun, it's because you're going to a fun place. Like, oh, I'm going to the beach. I'm going to a place of fun. So, the actual act of driving, just for the sake of driving, like, I don't know if it would be different if, I lived in a place that had some really scenic, driving places. Although, no, even saying that, like, um, it's debatable. I did that a little bit, when I was living, um, over in the desert, and so there actually were some really scenic, drives that you could do, and I did do that on occasion. But, you know, that was usually with somebody else. I don't know that necessarily I would do it just for like a chill drive. Um, you know, Especially if it was towards dusk or dawn, I would rather a chill walk than more than anything. And that by that point I had acquired a dog, so I mean I guess that makes sense. But yeah, I definitely miss the sheer thrill, of driving. And I don't know. I mean, if it's the same for people like that say like drive, professionally like a NASCAR and stuff. I mean, like I wonder. I genuinely wonder if like they're still just chasing the dragon, trying to recreate the thrill of like when they were going 35, in their parents' station wagon for like the first time. I don't know if it's still the same thrill. I mean, at that point, it's starting to get to be life or death. So maybe you are getting enough adrenaline to be like, yeah, this is the feeling, baby. Yeah! Or if it's just them being like, oh, it's so close to when I would just go around in that radio flyer. I don't know. I don't know. I'm interested to think that but that's I think why it's important that I like to have a recurring segment saying what do you still like to do that you kind of still have the same feelings as when you were a kid, because that's a lot more rare than the stuff that you used to friggin' absolutely love, like flying a kite when you were a kid, as opposed to now if I flew a kite I'd just be like hey, this is fun. If it's with my kid, then it's just like, and I get to see him having the same experience, like that'll be nice, But other than that, it isn't like I'm going to feel the same. I'm gonna feel like nostalgic for him feeling that by proxy, like my love for them, and then them feeling that thing, and it's just like, hey, life's kind of cool that I had another one, and that one got to experience what this one did, you know, and that kind of what it's all about. All the stand up at night and changing diapers and all that stuff. It's just like, isn't it those moments that you really shoot for, and why it's so important that you really should have, you know, plenty of maternity, paternity, and vacation time. I just got political at the end. I was going to avoid it, and I'm keeping it in, but damn it, I got so close to doing a completely non-political episode. All right, you know what? Yeah, that's it. Good. Have a good one, guys.